Donald Trump and J.D. Vance just kind of mauled Zelensky in front of everyone, and he played into it perfectly. But I also practically couldn't believe what I was seeing, because I've never ever in my life seen anything like it. I didn't think that was going to happen, but I did think that nothing was going to come out of the signing of that rare earths agreement that was supposedly the reason why Zelensky came to Washington. And I'll explain why. And this is, I think, to my mind, the most mind-blowing aspect of the whole story. So, it may seem for people who are, not following this closely or rely on, mainstream media accounts that, Donald Trump just woke up one day, decided to be evil and greedy, and decided to squeeze the poor Europeans and take advantage of their misfortune and take $500 billion in Ukrainian resources for U.S. interests. So to win Trump over, kind of with the mindset that Trump is a transactional guy and they just have to kind of lure him with the promise of big bucks. So Zelensky went to New York, met with Trump, and made him that basic offer. The $500 billion figure comes from Zelensky. So it's not Donald Trump who invented that number. It's Zelensky who made that offer. But the story of Ukrainian minerals goes way back to September of 2024. So that is, and maybe possibly even earlier than that. But in September of 2024, so we're going on nearly 6 months ago now, Volodymyr Zelensky paid a visit to Donald Trump in New York and offered essentially this deal to Donald Trump because he wanted to win him over, and because he was worried that if Biden loses the election, or if the Democrats lose the election and you get Donald Trump in the White House, that Ukraine might lose support. And so fast forward to February of this year, so these last 2 or 3 weeks, we had Scott Bessent Trump sent him to Kiev, and he brought a draft agreement to Zelensky about these minerals. And I think that was the 12th of February. But apparently there's a secret appendix to the agreement, which pretty much says that Ukraine, upon the cessation of hostilities, British interests will take over all of the Ukrainian ports, energy resources, storage facilities, pipelines, rare earth minerals, and on and on. And so, this is an intelligence leak. It's not confirmed, but the way that the agreement reads, it makes it plausible. And then what I found out today is that, so this was signed 16th January, 17th of January, Volodymyr Zelensky makes a video statement on his Telegram channel in which he says that there is a secret part to the 100-year partnership agreement. Regardless, I am 100% certain that Donald Trump and his people understand this situation perfectly, because if it is true, okay, so one thing about this 100-year agreement signed between Britain and Ukraine on 16th of January is that it's not the entire agreement. So you can read the agreement online. It's posted on the UK government website, but it's not the entire agreement. Normally these kinds of agreements have entire agreement clause saying that all the rights and obligations of the parties to this agreement are spelled out here. There's nothing beyond this, because otherwise it would be, somebody could have an open-ended liability or whatever. So it's a customary clause that goes into the whole boilerplate of most contracts and agreements. And then in the press release of the British government saying that, oh yeah, we signed this agreement, there is this sentence. It also, referring to the agreement, it also cements the UK as a preferred partner for Ukraine's energy sector, critical minerals, strategy, and green steel production. So the Brits themselves say, this 100-year agreement cements Britain as the preferred partner. Donald Trump says that Zelensky is a dictator and he has a 4% approval rating in Ukraine. And the Brits go insane. There's like a hysterical reaction in Britain, not only by Starmer, but also pretty much by the whole mainstream media and even Mr. Controlled Opposition, Nigel Farage. Because if Zelensky is not the legitimate president of Ukraine, which he isn't, then his signature on this 100-year agreement is worthless. And then the whole agreement is null and void. So they all jump to the defense, like, no, the president of the United States is wrong. Starmer is Zelensky is the legitimate president. He was duly elected, and he has a war at home, so he can't hold elections. And in the United Kingdom, we didn't have elections between 1935 and 1945 because of the war and blah, 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 blah. It's irrelevant. That's their narrative. So as of last May 2024, Volodymyr Zelensky is illegally acting as a president of Ukraine. So Britain's agreement with Ukraine is null and void. Ukraine has a constitution. It's the supreme law of the land. And Ukrainian constitution says that the president's term is for 5 years. Presidential elections cannot be delayed for any reason. The president's term cannot be extended one day beyond the 5-year term for any reason. And that's that. So now, to defend all this, suddenly there's this panic of, at the Munich Security Conference, they realized that the Trump administration is throwing them all collectively under the bus. And then quickly they organized this emergency summit in Paris. What are we going to do? This is the disaster. It's a catastrophe. Apparently that meeting went badly because the draft agreement that Bassan submitted to Zelensky, however that happened, didn't contain any mention of security guarantees for Ukraine from the US side. And then a few days later, there was a meeting between Zelensky and Marco Rubio. And Zelensky said, I will, that's a great deal. I'm going to sign that deal, but I have to run it through my, administrative, legislative process, whatever. But rather than getting back to Rubio, or rather than saying, okay, everything's clear, we can sign the agreement, Zelensky went to the media and say, I rejected the agreement because this and that, And so Marco Rubio thought, well, that's not what you said to me during our meeting. And then Marco Rubio gave an interview to the media saying this, and that basically, not only did Zelensky embarrass the U.S. Secretary of State, he also insulted the president, Donald Trump. And so apparently Zelensky went crazy and was quite, impolite, and rejected the agreement. And then 2 days later, on Friday, 14th February, they submitted a counter proposal, the Ukrainians. And so I thought that is so incredibly strange, because Zelensky's life practically depends on U.S. support. Ukraine is desperate for U.S. support. Without U.S. support, they're finished. And so why would Zelensky be so abrasive and brazen in rejecting the U.S. deal and pretending like he has a great negotiating position here? And then I couldn't understand it. And then someone sent me an article from a Czech online portal called AE News, who apparently have a very good record of catching major scoops. And what they were reporting is that according to a intelligence leak from Ukraine, from Ukrainian intelligence, the reason why they're doing all this smoke and mirror show is because Zelensky already signed over Ukrainian resources energy, minerals, ports, and all this to the Brits. And that happened on the 16th of January, on the occasion of them signing the 100-year partnership between the Kingdom of the Great Britain and Northern Ireland and Ukraine. So that happened on the 16th of January. Keir Starmer flew to Kiev, and he and Zelensky signed this deal. And so now Zelensky can't sign them over to the United States. So now they're doing this song and dance with these extremely vague agreements that are not quite contracts, not quite treaties. It's extremely difficult to interpret. And then there was this fallout because Zelensky simply cannot make a commitment. So he's dodging it, and he's being impolite and abrasive and disrespectful in the process. That was just 4 days before Donald Trump's inauguration. So it was basically Keir Starmer's stealth act of piracy. He snatched Ukraine's resources from under Donald Trump's nose. And so I think, among other things, they decided to kind of flood the zone around Trump, to just go one after the other to see Trump and try to persuade him to commit to Project Ukraine. And so I think, the Kaja Kallas gave it away because she posted on X a comment. I think she was addressing Marco Rubio. I don't remember exactly whom she was addressing, but she said, let's not allow Putin to divide us. And basically, she said that we need to get the United States back on board with this. And then Starmer got there on Friday. So when was it? No, on Thursday, 26th February. He got subtly humiliated. And then came Zelensky, who got absolutely mauled. And so then apparently some people told me that Ursula von der Leyen has been trying to call Trump multiple times. He's not taking her calls. And then Andrzej Duda went there, and he got humiliated because Trump kept him waiting for like an hour and a half and then gave him 15 minutes of his time. And then went Emmanuel Macron. He got humiliated. Trump kind of treated him like a schoolboy, putting him to sit next to him at the corner of his desk. Pull up the chair, let's get this over with, like that. And so Trump, the most important thing for the Europeans to win from Trump was U.S. commitment to Ukraine. Now, what does that mean? In order for this agenda with the resources to stick, and I'll explain why the resources are extremely important. In order for all this to stick, it is absolutely imperative for the European powers and Britain to retain control of the political process of Ukraine, to make sure that people loyal to them are in power, because for the resources there are money good collateral for the absolutely collateral starved European and British financial systems. But in order for all that to work, you need to control the political process, because if tomorrow Ukraine realigns with Russia, some government comes in that's favorable to Russia and says, this agreement that you signed with Zelensky is dog shit, it's null and void, goodbye. Then all of it crumbles. This whole dream about controlling Ukrainian ports and gas and titanium and all of these things becomes a pipe dream and flies away. And so having control over that collateral would enable British and European banks to fuel a new large-scale credit impulse. So the banks, British European banks, could finance the development of Ukraine, the development of their of their resources, and control the trade of these resources, and then award these contracts to their own clients, meaning the corporations, the agricultural, energy corporations, mining corporations, port authorities, whoever could, and that way they could the wealth extracted from Ukraine could all kind of flow towards European and British banks. And so that's why at the emergency summit in Paris on the 17th February, Starmer said, we want to commit troops to Ukraine. We want to send British troops to Ukraine so that they could have control over all this. And then, the way the Brits work is they make a small commitment and they start kind of lobbying everybody else. You send 10,000 and you send 10,000 and you send 30,000. And like World War I too, because they always wanted the United States involved, but they started it anyway. And then they lobbied, and even pulled false flag events in order to get the United States involved. So they're trying to do the same again. And so they were like, we're going to send 10,000 troops. And then, then you get the French to send 10,000, and then you get the Baltic state to send whoever they can. And then if you can get rid of Carlin Georgescu in Romania, then you get Romania to send 20, 30,000 troops. You get some from Sweden, Finland, Czech Republic, okay. Germany. So yeah, and there you put it together. Remember, they don't need to defeat Russia militarily. They just need to destabilize Russia and get to the regime change, get rid of Putin, and put somebody there like Yeltsin, who's going to be friendly with the Western interests. And so this is what the Europeans were trying to get from Trump when, Duda went there, Macron went there, Kaja Kallas went there, Keir Starmer went there, Zelensky went there, Ursula von der Leyen keeps trying to reach Trump by phone, and it all fell apart on Friday, which was one of the most amazing spectacles ever. The problem is that none of it works without the support of the United States for a variety of reasons. And I don't know all of them, but I know that, that for all of the advanced, sophisticated weaponry that the NATO has, they need U.S. Satellite intelligence, they need GPS, global positioning system. They need logistical support. I don't know what else, but without the United States, they don't have anything. They can just send their people there as a cannon fodder to get slaughtered, and they cannot change the outcome of the game. But if they could persuade the Americans to support them, then they could, secure free and prosperous and democratical and sovereign Ukraine, and then continue to attack Russia. Even if the war is lost militarily, they can still continue to fight by means of terrorism, by means of, one of the main foreign policy tools that the British Empire has used for centuries is opium wars, which is one of the reasons why the Brits want to control the ports of Ukraine, because if you control the ports, it facilitates the flow of troops, of weapons, and of narcotics. And you can continue to attack Russia by terror gangs, by narco trafficking gangs, and so on. So what happened, it seems to me, is that Boris Johnson went there and he said, you got to make this deal with the Americans because otherwise they're out and we need them for all our little schemes to be glued together and so that they work. And then Volodymyr Zelensky says, okay, I guess I'm not rejecting the deal anymore. Now I'm accepting it. And then they drafted this agreement, supposedly, that was going to be signed yesterday on the 20th February in Washington, which, no, I didn't read the whole thing. I read a few clauses. But the Duran guys, Alexander Mercouris and Alex Christoforou, they read the agreement and they said, like, there's never been an agreement quite like this. It's complete dog shit. And so I was convinced that nothing was going to come of that agreement. But it seems to me that the Brits are kind of pushing Zelensky to play along with the Americans to kind of butter them up to try to keep Trump invested in Ukraine, to offer some kind of an agreement, and then to say like, well, yeah, later we're going to, this is not yet final, it's not binding, but please stay on board, bear with us, and so forth. And Trump had none of it. He just like threw him out. So Valery Zaluzhny at the moment is Ukraine's ambassador to Great Britain. Zelensky is in Great Britain right now because this whole mess had been cooked up by the British. And see, what happened is that it was on the 17th February, I think, that Marco Rubio gave his interview in which he said that Zelensky rejected the deal. So Zelensky rejected the American proposal. And then on the 24th February, again, Boris Johnson flies over to Kiev. And then two things happen. On that same 24th of February, and on that day, Boris Johnson is on this panel saying that Zelensky should accept the American agreement because that would commit the Americans in black on white to support Ukrainian security. So Boris Johnson is spelling it out. And then the same day, Verkhovna Rada, the Ukrainian parliament, votes this resolution saying that, Zelensky is still our legitimate president until the martial law is lifted and we have an election. But for now, he's the president. Doesn't matter. It's contrary to the Ukrainian constitution. So whatever Verkhovna Rada voted on there is unconstitutional. I think that there's a chance that Valery Zaluzhny ends up the new leader of Ukraine. Now, let me state this now out in the open and categorically. I can't say anything about this. But if one day in the near future, Valery Zaluzhny ends up as the acting president of Ukraine or ends up electing as a real president of Ukraine, after election, if he ends up being the real president of Ukraine, then I'm going to explain what happened. So again, it seems to me that the British pushed the lawmakers in Ukraine to vote this resolution because they understand that Zelensky has no legitimacy. So they just put parliamentary fig leaf on his presidency to say like, everybody agrees here. Everybody here agrees that he's the president and we have a war and martial law. We can't have elections. And that's that, except the Constitution says exactly the opposite. And then on the 25th, the day afterwards, Zelensky comes out and say like, "Oh yeah, I guess I'll accept the American deal." So yeah, I think it's likely that we're going to get a new acting president in not too distant a future. It might be Valery Zaluzhny, and then we're going to get a new election at some point. And depending on the outcome of the war and when the elections are going to be held, we might get Zaluzhny running, Poroshenko running, and Viktor Medvedchuk running. And I think that if Viktor Medvedchuk wins, then Ukraine is going to align with Russia. If Poroshenko wins, I think it's going to be bad. Things are going to continue in the bad direction. And then Valery Zaluzhny will talk about that if he ends up elected, because I think what I've been putting together over the last 2 years is going to blow everybody's mind. I don't know that I'm right. I have patchy evidence, but it's going to be something quite different than what most people think and expect. And then on the occasion of Trump's meeting with Keir Starmer on Thursday, 26 February, Trump also makes sure to point out that Vladimir Putin can be relied on not to breach any deals. And this is, all these pro-Ukraine people are screeching that you can't trust Vladimir Putin. Look up 2013 interview with Bill Clinton, who says that Vladimir Putin has never, that Vladimir Putin always kept his word in all the deals. Now they could come in very handy because you have duplicitous, lying Europeans who can't provide security for Ukraine, and then you have reliable Mr. Putin who honors his word and who can provide security. So Americans don't have to risk their men and resources in Ukraine for security to make all their deals stick. And Vladimir Putin is saying, we can make deals together. And I got a lot more than the Ukrainians have. And I'll take care of the security. So you don't have a problem of somebody coming in and tearing up your agreements and contracts. Now, to finish the whole thing, Europeans were also counting on, they also had their own calculus for this Ukrainian situation. Russia has about $260 billion frozen in European banks. What they think that they're going to do with that is to use that money as collateral to finance Ukraine's reconstruction. So this would, this is Macron's brainchild, and his former foreign minister, Gabriel Séjourné, is pitching it around, is that this would be used as collateral for French banks to finance reconstruction of Ukraine. Those contracts would be awarded to French companies or maybe other European companies, I don't know. And that again would make sure that as they repay their debts, as Ukrainians repay their debts to the Europeans, that there's again another large flow of wealth from Ukraine flowing to French banks. So very, very nice, brilliant ideas, but none of it works without the American support. And so, when Starmer goes there and tries to seduce Trump with his British accent and the hand-delivered letter from Chuck the King, the best friend of Jimmy Savile, that's all he has to offer. So for Trump, from Trump's point of view, the cost-benefit analysis is, here I can deal with a reliable party who won the war, who can provide security for free, and who doesn't go back on his word, or I can deal with these duplicitous snakes who lost the war, who have nothing to offer, and who need me to provide the security at my risk and cost.